Good morning, good evening, and good night, everybody. My name is Sarah, and we're finally back to another book review. Yeah, so I've kind of been toning down. I've actually haven't done a book review in quite a while, but I feel like this is one that deserves my attention, and it's one I really just want to get everyone to read. Red, White, and Royal Blue. I love this book so much that I feel like I have to make a review on it, just because it does everything I hate, and it makes me love it. Now, I've been trying to switch up my reviews so it's 3 positive things and 3 negative things, so you really get a good idea of what this book is and maybe should you or should you not read it. Here's the thing. I struggled to find negative things to talk about. Generally, I enjoyed this book so much that I feel like my review is really just saying, hey, go read this book because it's just that good. But I'm gonna try. With that being said, let's dive on in. So Red, White, and Royal Blue follows sort of an alternative universe. After Obama, the elections kind of went differently. Instead, we have our first female president. No, don't worry, this candidate wasn't actually real. She wasn't actually running. The president who ends up winning, President Claremont, she is from Texas. She has a sort of a mixed race family. Her husband, her ex-husband now, was from Mexico, and so her children are both half white, half Mexican, and that plays a lot into this story because the story follows Alex, the first son, and his relationship with Henry, the youngest prince of England. And this is a romantic comedy, and I'm talking about it in June, so you can tell that this is not a straight love story. The royal wedding is coming up as Prince Henry's older brother, Prince Philip, is getting married, and so the first family is invited to their wedding. While they're there, Alex, our first son, ends up in an altercation with Prince Henry, and they end up tipping over the wedding cake, which is incredibly expensive. It is brought up multiple times how expensive this cake was and how tipping it over was not a good thing. PR disaster, photos everywhere, tabloids everywhere. And so now Alex and Henry have to pretend to be best friends in order to fake the media and make sure that there isn't some sort of belief that there is bad relationship between America and England. Just a forewarning, this is a new adult book, so there are some sex scenes, but it's kind of glossed over. It's kind of the way that Evelyn Hugo was done. It's obvious that they have sex. This kind of goes in a little bit more detail because they do talk about it afterwards, but there's nothing gross and in depth with it. It happens. Okay, little chit chat afterwards. You might need to make sure no one sees us doing this. But yeah, so just a forewarning, this is not a young adult book. All these characters are over the age of 21. It does show them drinking. It does show them having sex. Apparently that's human nature, so accept that. So, of course, this book, again, like I said, is a romantic comedy, so it plays with a lot of tropes. That's actually one of the first pros I want to talk about in this book. It has a lot of tropes in it, yes, but it plays with them and it does it correctly. I normally don't like these tropes, but this book has everything I hate, and like I said, I love it. So let's talk about that. This, of course, has fake friendship, enemies to lovers, fake relationships, and then sort of hidden relationships, and then it has all those romantic story tropes, and of course it being a political story, and this taking place around, it's 2020 because they're doing the re-elections. Their relationship cannot get out because that will affect it will affect England because they're still not, they're still very much in closed-minded, the prince has to be a prince sort of idea. And then the whole re-election is coming up and Alex has to face the fact that if his relationship with Henry comes out, it will affect his mother's career, which is not something a lot of people have to deal with. But it's a very interesting idea and very terrifying if you were in that situation, which I think this captures that really well. Having to hide your relationship because it will affect people other than you, that sucks. And that is portrayed so well in this book. I love it. My first con is actually something I kind of mentioned. Prince Henry doesn't exactly have the most supportive family. He hasn't come out to them yet, but his family is, in fact, aware that he isn't straight, and they very, very much do not support it. And, it goes to the point where his brother, Prince Philip, the guy who was getting married, he is like threatening to disown Henry, and like, boy, you're his brother. You don't get a right to disown him. And it's so stupid and frustrating, and it's gonna be a con. If there's ever a relationship in a family that doesn't support another character, that's automatically gonna be a con for me. Like, I get it, it's necessary for the story, but I don't like it. And yeah, I needed to bring it up because I'm not always comfortable recommending a book without a supportive family in it, especially when that family doesn't have to face the consequences for their actions. Next pro, again, like I said, this book has great representation. Alex is half Mexican. He is from a divorced family from Texas. His father is a senator. There is a scene that takes place over Christmas where his father comes early to the White House to hang out with his kids. And there's a whole like Secret Service thing there. It's like, yeah, you're also a politician, but we know that you didn't get along with your now ex-wife. And it's great having like representation for a divorced family. And it's like they get along, but there's clearly tension there, and they're trying to like hold it out for their kids, but like clearly they got divorced for a reason. And it's so rare to see a divorced family in fiction that like is actually portrayed like real people. I like it. There's also trans representation in here. There's also like there's just so much. There's bisexual representation, there's gay representation, I believe there's pansexual representation. I think one of the characters I'm forgetting which one it was, but I'm very certain there was mentioned a pan flag being flown at some point. But yes, of course, this book has so much representation, from just gender identity to like cultural identity to sexuality identity, words, but yes, you know what I mean. And it's so rare, and for all that to be in there, and for it to feel natural. Like, yes, America, huge mixing pots. Like, everyone is here. You cannot deny the fact that it feels right, because that's America. Alex is bisexual, so that makes this book Own Voices, because our author is bisexual. So we really get that aha moment, like, oh shit, I'm not straight. Like just because you like girls doesn't mean you don't also like guys. Like, that moment, like, everyone who like had that moment before is like, oh yeah, this book does it so right. There's also the fact that Henry's father had died and passed away. I don't exactly remember. It was like when he was younger, but he's still like processing and like dealing with the grief and depression. So we also have some mental like issues going on there. And there was a tweet from the author who said that Alex had undiagnosed ADHD, which it isn't, again, it's undiagnosed, so it isn't addressed in the book. But if you pay attention to his character, you do notice those little things. I'm like, oh, yeah, that seems familiar. Like, that might just be character quirk, or like the author said, it's undiagnosed ADHD. People suffer from it at different levels, but it's still something that needs to be talked about. I don't like how that was revealed in a tweet, but if you read the book, you can kind of tell, so I'm going to let that slide. My next con is the fact that this is political. I did enjoy this book, even though it took place in a very political environment, but it is something I feel like I should bring up. This book is not subtle about its political opinions. I don't think it even could be, because our president in this universe, she is a Democrat from Texas, which is incredibly strange that they somehow like worked that into the story in such a well way that they did. But the ending, it very much got like, oh yeah, they're like campaigning for re-election, like that's happening, that's going on. But then it kind of like, by the end of the book, it's very much like they're going up, they're making speeches, they're making their point. And if you are not comfortable with politics, because I know a lot of people nowadays are not, be warned, I guess. Like, I think it's done in a very well way. I wanted to bring this up as a negative because of the fact that in my own reading preferences, I hate books with politics in it. Like, that makes me DNF a book. Like, it's one of the fastest things that make me DNF a book. I think it's done really well. I bought this book knowing it was political, though. It wasn't a surprise, so have that in your mind if you plan on picking up this book. The next pro is its writing style. Now, the writing style kind of like encompasses a lot of things. It's very modern. It's very much, it takes use of social media and texting and just like communications through the modern means. Some people don't like that because it dates the book. I think like it was done really well. Like, yes, there's mentions of very specific apps and like very specific things like, oh yeah, I can just like edit you out and suddenly you don't exist. And so that way they can like cover relationships by like editing out the like party that needs to be hidden. So that is something that you might want to be aware of, the fact that this is a very modern book. I think it's done incredibly well. Yes, it's going to date the book, but you have to understand they had a specific year that this book takes place in. Own it, live up to it, 2020 re-elections, that they're going to live in that era whether you like it or not. The next fact about the writing style, it feels like it's so sassy and it's so funny, and our main character, Alex, he's so much sass and he does not hide it. And that gets him in so much trouble, but it's so funny to watch. There is a couple like cringe moments every now and then where it's like, why are you doing this? But I love it. It's so funny. I'm always up for having a sassy character. Like, I think they are some of the best characters out there because I think it's done incredibly well, especially with this setting, because they grew up political. Like, they knew that both their family were in politics, and so how they were raised was not exactly the same as how we were raised, and you can tell that in the jokes that they tend to tell. The next con I want to talk about is technically a spoiler, but I feel like it's kind of obvious. So if you don't want to know this specific thing that happens in the latter half of the book, that is a huge plot point, skip to like the time that I have on screen. But I feel like it's something I need to talk about, especially because I've noticed this coming up in a lot of books recently, and I'm not happy with it. Okay, is everyone gone who wants to be gone? Cool. This book has a forced outing. Alex and Henry don't get to choose when they come out to the world as in a relationship. They don't get to choose when that happens. Actually, their families kind of find out with the rest of the world. And I think that sucks, and I'm kind of sick and tired of books doing that. I understand that this book kind of can get away with it because that's really the only way that this would happen. I don't think that these characters would choose to come out on their own time, like not for a very long time at least. But this is like the third book I've read like in a row that has this kind of relationship ending, or at least being stalled by someone like not getting the choice of coming out. And I hate it. I really, really do. That almost knocked it down the entire star rating for me. Like, this is a 5-star book, but it could be a 4-star book because of this situation. And it sucks that this is now becoming a common trope in LGBT books. And I really hate it. I really do. So, yeah. That happens. I understand why. That doesn't mean I agree with it. Let's end this on a positive note. The last pro of this book is the fact that it actually got me to like the relationship. I am notorious for hating anything relationship, romance-wise in a book. There are very few books that actually get me to care about the relationships of the character. There's Magnus Chase, which got me to it twice, which is like incredible. There is Six of Crows, which got me to care about the non-straight relationship in that book. And then there's this one, which got me to care about the non-straight relationship in this book. So, you know, it's very rare that a book gets me to care about the relationship of its character. But when it's a romantic comedy, that's kind of like, if I didn't like the relationship, this book would have been nothing to me. So it did what it had to do, and it did it well. Like, I don't know what else to say to get you to read this book. It's like, it was good. I loved it. It did the tropes well. It got me to care about the relationship of the characters. Like, that's really hard to do, and I love it. So yeah, 4.55 stars. There is that one problem that is in fact a spoiler, but we're gonna ignore that because I understand the choice. I understand the choice. Doesn't mean I have to like it, but I understand it. So this was an amazing book. I loved it. I loved how it dealt with the political relationships. I loved how it dealt with them trying to like hide their relationship and the fact that they had to do it because they're in different countries. And it's not even that countries that are close together. It's like, no, one's in America and one's in England. And to travel to see each other, that is not easy, especially when you're trying to hide that from the press. And the press follows you everywhere. So yeah, like I said, 4.55 stars. I highly recommend this book if you are looking for a cute, easy to read, non-straight romance. Please pick this book up. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked this book or now want to read this book, please leave that down in the comment section down below. And while you're there, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. As always, good night, good evening, and good morning, everybody.